Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel. So a while ago I made a video where I talked about 5 reasons to get into the Star Wars Expanded Universe. I talked about why I think it's so special and enjoyable. In today's video I'm going to be doing something similar. I'm going to be talking about 3 reasons people generally avoid the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Although myself and many others love the EU, there seems to be a negative stigma around it and many people flat out avoid it. If you're someone who's been hesitant to explore the Expanded Universe, or you're an Expanded Universe fan who's trying to convince somebody to become an Expanded Universe fan, hopefully this video will help you see why the hate isn't as warranted as it may seem. Now, let's get on with the video. Reason number 1. It's not canon. Okay, so this is one I hear all the time, and it's actually one of the reasons I stayed out of the Expanded Universe for a while. Since the Expanded Universe is not part of Disney's canon, people ignore it. Since it's not canon, why bother, right? Now the problem with this statement is that it is canon, it's just not Disney canon. It's 2 separate timelines, each with its own continuity and its own canon. It's kind of like how Marvel movies have a different timeline and continuity from the comics. If you're an Iron Man fan, you wouldn't avoid reading Iron Man comics because it isn't a part of the MCU, right? So why should Star Wars be any different? Also, when talking about canon, you have to remember for many years at Lucasfilm it was the current canon. It was acknowledged and even influenced by George Lucas at times. Aspects of the prequels like Kashyyyk being the Wookiees' home planet and Aayla Secura all come from the Expanded Universe. The Expanded Universe is so much more than officially licensed fan fiction, so don't let the Legends banner deter you from getting into the Expanded Universe. You can have 2 different continuities, that's okay. Reason number 2. The Expanded Universe stories are terrible. Alright, so the Expanded Universe has a reputation for having bad stories. One of the issues and reasons people tend to think this is that they aren't actually reading the stories for themselves. Yeah, there are a few stories in the Expanded Universe that aren't that good. I'll get to that in a little bit. There are so many stories and characters in the Expanded Universe that if you don't know the context or haven't read the stories yourself, it might seem weird and stupid to some. People hear about Abeloth in a video or on a Reddit post and think that she's weird and hate her without reading the novel she's in. I think Abeloth might get a lot less hate if people actually read the Fate of the Jedi series. Context and knowledge are better than ignorance and assumptions. Okay, so what about the stories that aren't good? Because with 155 novels, hundreds of comics, video games, not everything is going to be absolutely perfect all the time. Yeah, it is true that the Expanded Universe does have stories that a lot of people might consider bad, even with context. However, generally speaking, there are so many more good stories than bad. If you let the few bad stories deter you from the good ones, you'll be missing out on an entire universe full of awesome stories. I'd encourage you to read the stories yourself before making assumptions, even the ones that people say are bad, like Dark Empire. Like I said earlier, context can help you see the actual quality of a story. Reason number 3. The Expanded Universe is full of plot holes. Okay, so this next one is similar to the last one I talked about. If you've ever been on Reddit or anywhere on the internet where they're talking about the Expanded Universe, this is something that gets brought up a lot. Many people are under the assumption that the Expanded Universe is full of plot holes. Now, you don't have a universe that big without a few mistakes. However, when writing the Expanded Universe, writers had extremely strict guidelines. When the original trilogy was the only trilogy out, writers weren't allowed to write stories that took place decades before A New Hope, in order to avoid possible future contradictions. They would also occasionally have input from the maker himself, George Lucas. One of the things that was the most helpful though was that Lucasfilm had, and still does technically, a holocron, which was a document that contained the entirety of the Star Wars universe and the content in it, a complete timeline of the entire galaxy. So even if an author hadn't read every novel or comic, they would still have the holocron to keep from making mistakes. Leland Chee, who was in charge of it, worked tirelessly to ensure that there weren't any continuity errors. This made the authors at Lucasfilm avoid contradictions. Now, am I saying there are 0 contradictions? Absolutely not, but generally speaking there are explanations for most of the contradictions you can find. Not all, but most of them. So in conclusion, the Expanded Universe is its own canon outside of Disney's continuity. It has its own world with amazing world building and stories that rarely contradict each other despite popular belief. So I'd encourage you to give the EU a chance. Start off by reading the Thrawn trilogy, then go from there. Who knows, you might enjoy these stories. I hope you guys have an awesome day. May the Force be with you.